The senator from Beaufort, if there's a way.
Continuing on with my characterization of 44-53-2080, mindful of the fact that, okay, I won't read it verbatim, but that's what I'm referring to, that section. Another requirement that has got to be in that written certification by the physician is that the patient has one of those debilitating medical conditions, that the treatment of that condition or one or more of the symptoms of the debilitating medical condition falls within the physician's area of practice, identifying the patient's condition, and that the symptoms or side effects or condition or its treatment could benefit from a certification for the medical use of cannabis. Next, importantly, and these are all things, this is elaborate, because I want that physician-patient relationship to be exalted, and I want the physician to have to do specific things and put them in writing. That makes our bill a lot different from a lot of other bills, a lot of other laws. This is important coming up, and continuing the certification requirements, that the physician has developed a written treatment plan that includes a review of other measures attempted to ease the suffering caused by debilitating medical condition that do not involve cannabis products for medical use. So we're talking about authorizations by a physician in cases where traditional therapeutics haven't worked. Okay? That's a condition to being authorized to have cannabis. There's got to be a physician's attestation that those conventional medications have not helped the suffering. Also, this written treatment plan has to include advice about other options for managing the debilitating medical condition. Has to also provide advice about the potential risks on the use of medical cannabis products, which include the potential exacerbation of psychotic disorders. Because it is the case in some individuals, 1% is the data that I have here. In some individuals, cannabis can be not good at all. It can, and this book here by Alex Burrison, Tell Your Children, that the Palmetto Family Council mailed out throughout the state, I guess, focuses on those cases where a patient has responded negatively and it has fed into schizophrenia. But the fact that cannabis as medicine may interact with patients in a certain way, a very small minority of patients, is not a reason to throw the thing out completely. I mean, there's always going to be somebody who is going to respond negatively to any sort of prescription drug or any kind of medicine. There's going to be those outliers. But to take those instances and then bootstrap into a reason why we shouldn't allow it at all doesn't make any sense. I mean, if that were the test, we'd have no medications that could be prescribed, because there's always going to be somebody out there that has a negative reaction. You can't let that minor exception be the rule. But anyway, in recognition of that fact, that there are cases that are documented in this book, I would say a little bit sensationally for my taste, but they're documented. That's why I call this the Tell Your Children section, okay? That's why there is this specific requirement that a physician have a written treatment plan that includes discussing and looking into whether or not there are psychiatric disorders or adverse cognitive effects that could result from it. I mean, so this is a very, very high bar, and it goes on and on. But I'll to the Senator from Charleston's point, I'll just commend your attention to Section 44-53-2080 in terms of establishing that extraordinarily high bar to qualify to get cannabis. It isn't like other states. It isn't like Arizona. It's not like California. It's our law. And quite frankly, it's going to be difficult for a patient to get access to cannabis under this law, because you have to have a physician making a diagnosis within his or her field of expertise, going through all this due diligence list, and then certifying that this patient has a qualifying condition that could benefit from cannabis and that therapeutics, other methods have not worked. Very, very high. And higher than I would like, quite frankly, because I think it's going to bar a lot of access to medicine. But I realize there is a value and a virtue to going slow, to being measured, to making certain about things, especially when we're trying something new. So I've made my peace with that. But, and I don't know how much you want me to go into detail in regard to, I guess just to make my record, each of the conditions, starting with cancer, there's a peer-reviewed medical study that's dated March 17, 2016. Conclusion: cannabis is known for its antiemetic properties, which makes it an appealing treatment. THC can treat nausea via emetic reflex pathways by acting as receptors located in the nucleus tractus celerity at the level of the area postrema. I mean, I could never go to med school. This is just words that I just have never seen. Bottom line is it helps with the nausea, it helps with the vomiting, it helps with the pain, and it helps stimulate appetite. And I know this firsthand because my friend and our colleague across the hall's brother, Bill Horstman's brother, died of cancer. And in the days before he died, and this is why Bill sponsored the bill over in the House, marijuana was the only thing that allowed him to maintain any sort of semblance of living in terms of appetite, in terms of pain, in terms of just quality of life. And so cancer, that's why cancer is one of the listed qualifying conditions. PTSD. Well, first I'll talk about muscle spasticity and pain. A study done released in April 9, 2018, done by Doctors Gyang, G-Y-A-N-G, Highland, Sankoff, and Goodman, who looked at individuals or patients who had multiple sclerosis. And the finding was the majority of subjects, 77%, found medical marijuana helpful in managing symptoms, primarily spasticity and pain, and reported no side effects. More than half, 70%, felt their quality of life improved with medical marijuana, and some patients reduced other symptomatic medications. Neurology diseases. Study that was done, a peer-reviewed study, April 2014. Efficacy and safety of medical marijuana in neurological disorders. The following, and this is the conclusion, the following were studied in patients with MS. Spasticity, oral cannabis extract is effective. Nabiximols and THC is effective for reducing pain-centered measures. They're effective in reducing pain or painful spasms, and just details how the cannabinoids interact with the body to address those underlying neurological difficulties and problems. NIH, National Institute of Health, U.S. National Library of Medicine, published a scientific abstract on February 3, 2017 about Alzheimer's that I shared with the Center from Lexington just a moment ago. There's another study in regard to Alzheimer's that was in December of 2019 on Alzheimer's patients, and the conclusion was CBD in cannabis is useful to treat and prevent Alzheimer's because cannabis components could suppress the main causal factors of Alzheimer's disease. Again, I mean, I've just pulled out a few of the studies. There are more. Happy, I have a box in my office of other studies if you want to see further information in that regard. In regard to epilepsy, I mean, that's beyond, I guess, debate at this point in time. The problem is that although CBD is allowed, what we passed in 2014 basically allows cannabis oil that's got CBD and only trace amounts of THC. It doesn't allow more than 0.9%. In many instances with epilepsy, you need that combination of CBD and THC to get the therapeutic benefit to the patient. And again, 500 young patients were studied. This was in Jerusalem, as in Israel. They looked at 500 young patients that had epilepsy, and they found, quote, marked improvement in seizure rates for children suffering from uncontrolled epilepsy. PTSD. And I know some of you had the opportunity to visit with Gary Hess, who's a Marine Corps veteran who had unbelievable trauma while defending our country and came back home with PTSD and on several occasions contemplated suicide. And they loaded him up with pharmaceuticals. They essentially, rendered and took away his quality of life completely. And then he found out that marijuana provided that relief. And so he's made it his mission to go around to other states. On his own dime, he's here trying to have you guys understand his story. I mean, and almost like if he could be on the screen like Margaret Richardson was, if he can benefit from this, isn't it incumbent upon us to find out a way to get it to him? I mean, surely we can do that. I mean, if we've got something we know is beyond doubt that it helps with PTSD, we got to get it to our veterans. The veterans have asked for this. I mean, they're Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFW. They did a study published, just a few months ago, September 21, 2021. For veterans diagnosed with PTSD. This is a FDA-regulated study, by the way. It yielded favorable results. It showed that they got relief. 150-person study, and this was the finding. The study found that cannabis users reported a greater decrease in the severity of their PTSD symptoms. They were also 2.5 times as likely to no longer meet the diagnostic criteria for PTSD as those who did not use cannabis. We're talking about something that can help our veterans. I mean, and just a few statistics here for South Carolina. Did you know that since 9/11, 2001, just over 7,000 U.S. service members have lost their lives in combat? But during that same period, 120,000 veterans have lost their lives to suicide. 120,000 veterans committed suicide since September 11. Twice the number of Americans killed in Vietnam. Did you know that South Carolina has the largest population of veterans per capita than any other state in the nation? Did you know that veterans make up 10% of South Carolina's adult population? Did you know that a veteran in South Carolina takes their life by suicide every 3 days? Every 3 days. And that press conference out there, Republican Party, Palmetto Family Council, and SLED, you didn't see any veterans out there. You didn't see any veterans out there. The veterans out there are the ones saying, empower us. Let the doctors give us what they think is in our best interest. Why are you not authorizing this? Why are you looking back at a 1971 law that classifies cannabis as a Schedule I drug along with heroin? And we know why that is. The history is clear. President Nixon wanted to stick it to the protesters. He rammed that thing through. Nixon's own medical advisory team said, do not do this. Marijuana does have medical value. And he did it anyway. He got this thing passed anyway. And we are paying obeisance to a law passed in 71 for that reason, and that's why we're not giving veterans medicine they need? That's ridiculous. And again, and I agree with Senator Johnson, just because 36 states have done it, look, doesn't mean we have to do it, but it is indicative that it works. You wouldn't have 36 states passing medical cannabis laws unless it worked. You wouldn't have them passing those laws if the federal law prohibited them from doing it, okay? It doesn't prohibit them from doing it. And just to make clear, the express language of the CSA that says we don't preempt, but just to make extra certain, Congress says every year to the Department of Justice, you can't use any of this money to challenge states that have passed medical cannabis laws. And yet, that's a reason we shouldn't do it? That's not a reason. It's not a very good reason. In regard to opioids, and we know about the opioid crisis, but I don't know if you know about these studies. This is a study that was published in the Journal of American Medicine in 2018. entitled Association Between U.S. State Medical Cannabis Laws and Opioid Prescribing in the Medicare Part D Population. And what they studied was the association between U.S. state implementation of medical cannabis laws and opioid prescribing. Conclusion: opioid-related mortality increased by 15.6% from 2014 to 2015 and increased almost 320% between 2000 and 2015. But in medical cannabis states, there was a decrease from of 2.1 million daily doses of opioids under Medicare Part D as a response to states that have medical cannabis laws. You saw that decrease in numbers of prescribed opioids. Another study published in the Journal of American Medicine studied 3 states that had medical cannabis laws and contrasted them with states that did not have medical cannabis laws. Conclusion: states with medical cannabis laws had a 24.8% lower mean annual opioid overdose mortality rate compared with states without medical cannabis laws. This is looking at data over an 11-year period, specifically contrasting states that have medical cannabis laws, a 24.8% less annual opioid overdose. If we want to do something about opioid abuse, rather than just talk about it, let's provide a substitute for opioids that is nowhere near as the side effects, nowhere near as damaging. You're not going to overdose on marijuana, okay? You are going to overdose on opioids, and you build up tolerance to the opioids. But cannabis works differently. Opioids address the pain. Medical cannabis, the cannabinoids, interacts with your body's endocannabinoidal system and gets to the underlying cause of that pain, okay? There's a difference between treating symptoms and addressing causes. Why would we not, faced with that clear information, I've got more studies that'll show the same correlation, why would we not make this available? Doctors want to help their patients.